Morning. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can all hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, okay, so
Right
we
on.
can.
Well, I think have handed the reins to me, and I say, wow. Up on a Saturday morning with us. I'm speaking to you from my home in Lyons, Colorado. Hello, Brighton Brew back, and Lindsay Gordon. Good morning, and I'm going to be watching the chat as I talk. But what an incredible opportunity to again keynote the Women's International Beer Summit. Last year, when I did this talk, very different time in my life and many of our lives. Things changed so much in a crazy couple years for everyone. And the title of my talk, I think, will ground me in what I want to share with you: gender and beer, and what's the deal here. It is time, it's beyond time to get past the fact that gender has nothing to do with beer. But yet, you'll probably agree with me, wherever women go, our gender seems to follow. And that makes no sense to me. We lead in beer because we are educated, because we are authorities from our own training, hard work, and time. And so that's what I want to talk about: is having, enhancing your empowerment and having your training and your studies and your brewing appreciation, or brewing in the home and the brew house, be really what prevails the entire conversation and carries the day. So let's talk about how to disrupt some norms. First of all, in my career as a home brewer, and having worked at the National Association, Brewers Association, and now directly at the American Homebrewers Association as your executive director, I've always had two resumes. One is my professional pursuits, the training, the jobs, the titles, the roles, the experience I've gained on the professional side. The second resume I've always had was a brewing resume. And I encourage you to consider that as a tactic. Brewing resume can and should contain everything from, and in my heart of hearts, I hope it says, American Homebrewers Association member since XX year, Pink Boot Society member, certifications, sensory classes you've taken. Frankly, conference attendees can go on that resume. How many breweries you've toured, how many batches of beers have you brewed, how many classes have you sat on. And if you grow that body of work, that, I think, will help set you apart and help empower you, where that has nothing to do with gender. That has to do, as I said, with credibility, hard work, education, and ever growing, every single day, authority. So think about those two resumes. And in the trenches study for beer studies, or I should say beverage alcohol studies, because our friends in cider and mead are on this call as well. And I'm one of those team players as well. The in the trenches study, besides the two resumes, is another great tactic: studying with each other. I've sat for Master Cicerone. Michelle just brought that up. I've sat 3 times. It has been a challenging journey for me. Having dyslexia, I think, has definitely affected my journey in test taking. From coming of age and SATs, and anytime I sat for tests, it always was pretty much one of the hardest days in that year. And Master Cicerone, though, I've made it to advanced level. So I have sat in the trenches, though, while studying with some of the speakers that are going to be presenting. You're going to hear from Nicole Ernie tomorrow on, talking sensory with a Master Cicerone. Amazing. Jen Blair, Michelle brought up, is going to be presenting at this very conference to you on what she wants you all to know. And so being in the trenches with others over your career while you each study helps set up accountability, support, and mentoring in exponential ways. I will also say awards and competitions is a huge one. And on that, I'm thirsty. I will continue on that topic, but I've got 2 beers. And I'd love to see in the chat, you'll note there are no labels on them because they're my home brews. I'd love to see in the chat right now, which one should I open? I have, from when I appeared in the Beer Movie, beermovie.org. You can still watch that movie today. It is a choke cherry Baltic porter. I have choke cherries that grow right out the window here. In the movie, you literally see us brewing that beer. It was supposed to actually be a true Baltic porter. It's more like a Baltic red. So you could call it a choke cherry Baltic red. Beautiful hues, lagered beer, red notes, tannins from the choke cherries, not as roasty as a porter. Or, friends, should I try my cherry chica stout? And in terms of cherry chica stout, on homebrewersassociation.org, we have published the recipe. So you could literally brew this and try what I'm talking about. So I want to see which one you all think I should drink. And I'd like that answer quickly so I can open one, please. So let me know, cherry chica stout or choke cherry Baltic red. And as I continue on awards and competitions, one of the big benchmarks in my career ongoing has been entering homebrew competitions. We've got the National Homebrew Competition coming up in June. We're going to have thousands of entries where we judge. That competition's 44 years strong. And in my career of entering beers and choke cherry, frankly, stout, I've been entering this and brewing this since the 90s. This had a gold medal award from Hop Barley and the Ailers, my local homebrew club, and it won the fruited stout category. What a boost that was to my brewing confidence, my education confidence, my authority confidence. And so you know what? I'm seeing a big mix while I'm talking, and I'm going to go for the Baltic Red. But choke cherry has won some awards, and that's always pleased me to no end. So entering competitions is another thing going on your beer resume, if I have my way, that you do add. Let's also talk about judging. Beer Judge Certification Program, of which I've been a certified beer judge since the 90s. That is literally a 8,000 strong group of beer judges. We do not know gender, so I think that's interesting that one day maybe we'd get lucky enough where BJCP would actually survey so we could get a handle on who are beer judges. But I want you to pay attention to the fact that those 8,000 judges should be one of you. It is many of us that are listening because this is certainly a more engaged audience, but I want more women judging beer. That's just the bottom line. It's an easy get. It's an incredible program. And then that'll lead to your enhancement in your career just studying for that. Speaking of studying and certifications, what about Cicerone? Cicerone has been an exponential journey for me. I had to step into the shoes at one point in my career of Ray Daniels when he left to create the Cicerone program. I took over his position as the craft beer program director at the Brewers Association, and I needed to empower myself on all resources beer, speak as a beer and food authority, talk about styles in a fluent, flowing way. And that information, that knowledge base, that confidence came from my BJCP judge studies, and then, yes, sitting for the Cicerone certifications, frankly, to the highest of levels. And then let me bring it to membership real quick. Membership is about me being a member of Pink Boots since the very first time you could be in 2008. I attended the first meeting of Pink Boots in San Diego. And ever since then, I have kept my membership up. It's also American Homebrewers Association. When I traveled across the country after I had quit my job at CNN Washington, D.C. Bureau as a broadcast journalism major in college and then got a job at the D.C. Bureau, my parents thought I was set. I tried it on for almost 3 years and it was incredible learnings, but it wasn't for me. Bottom line, I traveled cross country for almost a year. And on that road trip, I organically volunteered at the Great American Beer Festival. And then I also, after that trip, moved to Colorado and serendipitously got my name picked out of a top hat at a Beaver Creek, Colorado festival to win a membership to the American Homebrewers Association. The gentleman that picked that is Charlie Papazian, who lives 20 minutes out that window. And ever since then, with Pink Boots membership and the resources and empowerment available there, and American Homebrewers Association membership to me for many decades, that has led day in and day out, the reasons to brew provided by the AHA, the information on homebrewersassociation.org, getting Zymergy magazine in my mailbox every other month has led me to brew and to keep my journey of education and empowerment top of mind. So memberships is definitely in the mix. So, every one of the speakers wants to share and educate in the next 2 days, not just because they love talking about what they've learned, but because we want to empower each other. And if I were to share and educate and have my way with you having a takeaway from the talk, besides building up your brewing resume, right? And really, really getting your journey going in a way. There we go. Look at that. Getting your journey going in a way that you every month, every year feel even more knowledgeable. It's to get the game changer notion going that beer is beautiful. Y'all already know that. But that brewing beer brings exponential reward to you in ways that are really just hard to express and say in words, except you just have to brew at home to experience it. So I'm going to talk about that for a second. Now, being with the American Homebrewers Association, I get to write a column, Zymergy magazine. I'm going to read you my second column that I just filed. It hasn't been edited, but when the magazine comes out, you'll see the finished copy if you do get it. And basically the title is Reasons and Rewards for Brewing. So let me wax poetic a little bit and read to you. So sit with me, get your glass going of water, coffee, tea, beer, cider, mead, whatever floats your boat. Maybe even close your eyes. Take this in. Reasons and rewards for brewing. Forever on, since September 11th, 2013, I am consciously more vulnerable, aware, and raw to the world. Not just because 9/11 is the anniversary of the 2001 bombings in the United States. This date in 2013 is also the anniversary of the Colorado Front Range floods that tore through my town and backyard. The event left me gracious and forever changed. From becoming a FEMA recipient and only having tens of thousands of dollars in losses, where some of our neighbors lost their entire homes, I remain gracious only to have been displaced for a few months. As I type these words, I'm reminded of the evening of 9/11/2013, coming home from work. I drove across a bridge, the one closest to my home. The road attached to that bridge soon would be pummeled and pushed away as the river rose, then swelled over its banks, spilled across the highway and into our backyard. While trapped for 3 days outside our bedroom window, we watched houses and cars float by, the water flow within 10 feet of the foundation of our home. As I type, I'm reminded how recovery takes perseverance, diligence, focus, and attention. I'm reminded how life goes in cycles, and so does grief. I'm also reminded how recovery comes in many forms, including, yes, making beer. This Zymergy column is about the rewards of brewing and how two of the top reasons to me are, number one, homebrewing helps us feel at home. Number two, homebrewing allows us to give to others. After the flood, we were back at our house. It was around 6 months later, and we were grateful for services we usually take for granted: power, natural gas, running water. That's when I felt brave enough to reach out to my neighbors, the Dugans. Andrea and John, along with their 2 sons, had lost their entire home, and they were looking at years of displacement and rebuild. They happened to be homebrewers. I told them it mattered to me to help them, and they could not shake my desire to help them until they gave me the chance to do that. Knowing they lost all their possessions and much of their physical land, the river literally gutted landscapes, 10 to 15-foot cliffs where rocks and landscape architecture used to exist. I offered to brew them a beer. Not just any beer, mind you, but the one they guided. They picked the recipe. My husband Greg and I purchased the ingredients, and then we came out to where they were temporarily living to brew the beer. That day in 2014 was the best brew day I ever had. First, as you might know, when you take an outdoor brew system on the road, one's forced to think like a home brewer. More than ever, we had to. Oh, forgot the strainer? That's okay. Run in the kitchen and use the pasta colander. Where to rig the hose? Where to place the burner so the wind does not alter the flame? I love these challenges that come with homebrewing and see them as opportunities to solve. Help the synapses fire in a new way. You get it, right? On top of that, this was the Dugan's brew day. That gave me so much joy and lessened my feelings of grief and helplessness. Sure, we mere humans cannot control acts of Mother Nature, but heck, a brew day? Hells yes, we got this feeling took over. We felt safe outside. The sun in our faces while catching vitamin D was nurturing and healing. It helped momentarily erase the weeks, months, and years of digging through rubble and mountains of paperwork everyone was facing, including me and Greg. The day was glorious. We saw them smile, and the dark clouds of recent processing and loss that lifted, if only for a few hours, made us all feel better. When we were done brewing, we left them, give me a second. When we were done brewing, we left them with 2 5-gallon carboys, a 10-gallon batch, to have it happily fermenting in the temporary bedroom they were living in for an undetermined period of time. I knew that looking at an active homebrew from across the room, smelling it, seeing it, actively with it, would be a win in their otherwise overwhelming days. When it came time to package the beer, we gave them 2 of our Cornelius kegs. When the beer was ready, they served it at their first party. This was the first gathering at their home site and allowed them to show us, their friends, the rebuild effort and the recovery and the reclaim of the landscape. It allowed them to celebrate the resolve. After, we gave them one of our brew kettles. It was actually my first brew kettle, and some extra equipment so they once again had the basics to brew and didn't have to pick over buying new bicycles for their boys or getting themselves equipment. So I could read on and on. The column goes a little bit more, but the bottom line is sometimes the best reason to homebrew or brew or study or sit for a test or enter a competition is because it enhances the depth and the connection to the process that's all behind it. And I really, really, really want to just get at, in the decades to come of work on the homebrewing level and on advancing craft beer level, it's not just how to make the beverage, how to ferment that beverage. There's so much behind that, but it's also why do we do it? And a lot of the why to do it, to me, really fits with why I am here today and fortunate enough to be your executive director of the American Homebrewers Association. And so I want to also encourage every speaker that's speaking to you to remember that you are giving us your gift of authority. So I thank you each in advance. I think that is huge. And, it's not just sharing that has anything to do, back to the beginning of my talk and the title, with gender, right? Nothing I just said has to do with gender. Nothing. So the disruption to me is we are getting disrupted. Wherever I go, people want to talk about women in beer. It's one of the lead conversation interview questions, thoughts tossed my way. What do you think? When my male colleagues do not get asked that. What I'm after is not getting asked that question. I'm after being that authority that'll always be, chasing the education to share my knowledge with others. I'm after sharing information on the why and the how to brew. When we have to talk gender, it disrupts the conversation and hijacks it to a place that is unnecessary, I think. It's necessary to put on notice what women do deal with. Women identified individuals deal with pattern after pattern of more bias, discrimination, harassment, assault than male identifying individuals ever will. It's just a fact. The stats are there to show us that women have not made the progress we hoped. So I'm here to say, and all of your speakers will probably agree, that in our lifetime, the work continues. But in our lifetime, I do not agree that we have to lead with identifying as women. I think we lead with our authority, our hard work, our education, the way that we help innovate and bring new thoughts to the entire process of beverage fermentation, and how our experience has helped ourselves be trusted authorities, and how our experience can help others around us. And so there's that mentoring piece that I think is real important. First sip of beer, by the way. Thank you for choosing the Choke Cherry Baltic Red. Wow, good. Our experience is what gives us the mojo and the muscle to excel and grow. And with that, I am open to having some questions thrown my way. I see a lot of yeses in the chats. Things flew by. I will say, when it comes to any question that I would toss to somebody like me, I would want it to be about how I have learned to excel and succeed despite roadblocks. Good questions would be, hey, what's your favorite beer, by the way, to keep it fun and light? Or how have you continued to grow and thrive in this industry? So I see, continue to see lots of yeses. Disruption, that's got to be top of mind. I really, really, really want you all to think about homebrewing and joining us at the American Homebrewers Association. I want you to keep up on your studies. I want you to sit for certifications like Cicerone and BJCP. I want you to join us for HomebrewCon. Michelle mentioned it. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, June 23rd to 25th. We will be at HomebrewCon, and it will be the best gathering, I'd like to think, ever for homebrewers. Every year, the American Homebrewers Association ups the game on this conference. Last year, we did not get to have it in person because of COVID. This year, the energy and enthusiasm is going to be incredible. Or I might see some of you at Craft Brewers Conference, which is coming up first week in May in Minneapolis. What an incredible opportunity to network with each other. That collective consult, that collective gathering is where our minds at conferences, frankly, and Women's International Beer Summit is one, is where we get to grow. We think of things and we come through the other side of a conference, whether it's virtual or in person, in ways we would not have had having not attended that event. So, first question from Melissa. Are you going to continue writing articles for Zymergy? Absolutely. Zymergy is now been published since 1978, believe it or not, every other month. And Zymergy magazine is alive and well. More than 50,000 people read it. American Homebrewers Association, with 37,000 members, has everyone getting access to Zymergy, either digitally or physically printed and mailed to you. And yes, I now write for that. And what I read to you, the Reasons and Rewards for Brewing column, is my second column ever. My first column, for anyone that gets Zymergy right now, is just hitting. That just dropped.
So, Julia, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We've got a little ask a question section here. So I'm happy to read those out for you, or you can look at them yourself and start answering there.
What a great intervention, because I was looking at the chat and I actually knew that.
No worries.
So thank you. I totally see it. What's the best way to express your beer experience, a resume of sorts? How do you organize it? I've actually published my beer resume. It's older, and I am going to republish it soon, but in typical resume form. And you just have fun with it. Bulleted item, number of breweries toured. And then you put statistics, right? Don't we all want to read statistics to see breadth of experience from each other? So you say, I've toured 20 plus breweries. I've toured 100 plus breweries, whatever it is. And then you have a small descriptive paragraph below that. And you often on a resume, just like on my brewing resume, have a date range. So I think that's the best way to organize it. And when you submit to anything within beverage alcohol, you just don't upload your professional resume, of which that's what I call my professional resume. You also upload your brewing resume. And if anything, I've noticed over the years when I've suggested this to others, many of my former interns, for example, have said it's helped them get the interview. So it opens the door just by virtue of having it. How are you balancing your time? It seems like you're everywhere. Melissa asked this on the happy hour last night. I want to be everywhere. This is what I do. In my choice and time on this planet, and I am not kidding, it is very comfortable to me to speak to as many people as possible. I also greatly value the one-by-one interactions, and I'm doing a lot of that communication as well. But if you have a homebrew club, if you have a brewery, if you have a cidery, if you have any form of, Pink Boots chapter going, any group gathering, I am asking for an invitation to speak to you as the executive director of the American Homebrewers Association. So I can talk to your group about what's hot in homebrewing and why we should brew. And then also what plans we have going on the American Homebrewers Association side. And I like to summarize those 3 plans in this era, right? Because we've got a lot of runway. It's not about the past. It's learning and acknowledging from the past, respecting those accomplishments, leveraging the body of work that's been built, but then always evolving and growing. And the 3 things I talk about when I get that opportunity to be as many places as possible is we want to make homebrewing accessible to all. I think that has to do with welcoming the community in a broad-minded way where the club of homebrewers, metaphorically speaking, is open to all. We also want to grow the hobby, get as many people brewing as possible, get many more people being members than the 37,000 that we have, right? And then the third piece is through the resources that we built, and I encourage you to go to homebrewersassociation.org just to get your fingers tapping on the keyboard to see what we already have for you. We want to help homebrewers reach our goals. That's the third core thing that I'm focused on in these first few years. I see questions coming. What's your favorite beer, by the way? Oh, thank you, Jamie. I've definitely been drinking a lot of hoppy lagers this past year. And then I also, if I could nail one batch of beer style-wise that I would brew, and I haven't yet, and I'm due to try it again, is a authentic English style bitter. I've got a few from Hogshead in Denver in my fridge right now, and boy, that low bump of diacetyl gives it mouthfeel and body and girth, even though it's on a sessionable level of ABV, alcohol by volume. And I just, fall over myself on the malt notes. I grilled some ribs the other night, and respect certainly vegetarians. I've done years of being vegetarian, and then carnivore sneaks in for some of my career, and now I'm back to that side. But I grilled my family some ribs the other day, and I did an orange marmalade mixture. My girlfriend had made me, my friend had made me some orange marmalade, and I mixed that in with the barbecue sauce. So we did a dry rub. We grilled the ribs at 300°F for 2 hours. And then I put the barbecue sauce on with the marmalade snuck in. And then I had it with the Hogshead ESB. And I like to say, for pairing, really, if something's a home run, they fell into each other like 2 high school kids on a 3rd date. And if you don't get that statement, that's kind of crazy. They were so synergistic. The orange marmalade from the actual marmalade fell into the malt and popped out the malt notes, those brown malt notes, not just pale malt notes. Little crystal malt started to pop more. Little caramel started to pop more in incredible ways. So that's what I got going on there. New trends you're seeing in brewing? Absolutely. And I'll bring it to homebrewing right now because that's what I'm focused on speaking on. Brew in one system is clearly firing in all cylinders. You've got, BSG and Grainfather giving away equipment here. Brew in one system is not what I have. If I brew on my patio, and I also brew stovetop, I'm bringing up Cajun cookers out to the patio from the basement. I'm bringing my mash tun and my boil kettle up from the basement to the patio. I love it. It's a gravity-fed system, very rustic and kind of old school, but reliable. But the biggest trend I'm seeing right now, besides kind of brew in a bag, is brew in one systems, where your mash tun, your boil kettle, they're all in one physical system. So that's a biggie. Do you have any advice for a young woman trying to find her power while working with all men? I do think that not allowing the conversation to be disrupted and calling people on what you notice out as it happens is important. You do need a support network to be able to report if you do not feel that your group comments are being received well and supported. So you need that in place, meaning the behind the scenes reporting. Empowerment comes from speaking up, though. And I think it's really hard. I've talked about it on the level of pick your pain. Your pain is either keeping silent, many of you relate, or reporting. They both are painful. But pick your pain, because if you're already feeling that something's going on and you keep silent, that is a hard place to be. So that's my quick hit answer for you, Autumn, and I wish you very well.
Julia, just real quick, sorry. If you scroll back to the top of that list, you'll see all the highest voted questions as well.
Answered 7, top 9. Last year you mentioned a project called Great for Good. All right, Julie, bright and beautiful. How's that evolved over the last year? Or is it retired in the face of your new adventures? I really appreciate you asking that. We should all have our passion projects, our hobbies like homebrewing and whatnot, nurture our professions, right? So do our passion causes. A lot of people are using beer as social impact, for example. My flood beer for the Dugans is a great example of passion project, not going, aside. It was about helping people. What Julie asked about is Great for Good for All Womanhood. You can check out that website, greatforgood.com. It is alive and well, and I am getting ready to launch a crowdfunding campaign. This is a global grassroots campaign where I literally discovered in the course of letting my hair go gray, besides it being a very painful process because I was coloring, so it was really hard to stop and awkward for about 2 years, that women spend in the United States on average each year $20 billion on coloring our gray hair. And I want to take the money and shift that money to helping women and girls causes, because I also discovered in my research that women and girls causes are severely underfunded, and they are the lowest funded. They pretty much only get 1.9% of all giving goes to women and girls focused causes. The research is there from the Women's Philanthropy Institute, funded by the Lilly University, Lilly Institute at the Indiana University. The data is out there to tell us that 1.9% of all giving goes to women and girls causes. There's about 50,000 organizations that are devoted to women and girls. Pink Boot Society, by the way, is on the list and on the database that the Women's Philanthropy Institute tracks. So we got $20 billion over here for what? Why are we coloring our hair? Great for Good for All Womanhood is a call-in campaign, not a call-out. I colored my hair for years. Many of you probably color or will color. It's not about making you feel that you shouldn't. It's about helping you feel empowered that you don't have to. And it's about empowering us when we don't, so I don't feel shamed, because I felt shame when I wasn't coloring my hair. Now Great for Good for All Womanhood at greatforgood.com has that message front and center, and I'm trying to consciously shift the 20 billion from not coloring to then women and girls causes. The crowdfunding campaign will give me a chance to create a purpose-driven trust. That trust will allow investment of funds from women that put their money in that fund to grow their money. By the way, it's an investment fund, but a portion of those funds, and anyone in the fund will vote on where the money goes, will then go to women and girls causes that are so severely underfunded. So thanks for asking about Great for Good for All Womanhood. So, Emily, you asked this question. I feel like I've gotten at some of this. How do we get past the women in beer questions while also prioritizing women in beer? How do we lift up people in the margins without reducing them to those characteristics? Mentorship, allyship. Find people that can mentor you. I have done it. I attached myself to so many knowledgeable people over time and said, you cannot let me go. I want to learn from you. Guide me. Let me win you over. Help me learn from you. And then as I've advanced in my career, being 53 years, young now, I now mentor and advise others. At Craft Brewers Conference, part of the Thrive Conference, which Dr. J. Jackson Nicole Beckham is putting on, I will be speaking with some of my fellow mentors, where we have an accelerator group and we mentor each other. Peers can mentor each other. So the way that you lift people up in margins is you seek them out. You tell them you care. You tell them you're not going anywhere. Think about Big Brother Network, Big Sister Network. Things that are slow and steady win the race require time. So start a relationship with somebody you want to learn from, that you see excelling in the space that you respect, or create a situation where you are having others learn from you. That's my biggest suggestion. How has your journalism background shaped the way you approach brewing? Well, Christy, I'm learning from everyone. When I stepped in December 2021 as the new executive director of the American Homebrewers Association, I called every existing governing committee member. The AHA has a governing committee of 15 robust, in the space, amazing, passionate people. multiple conversations with internal staff who have been nurturing the hobby and fuel and support and service our 37,000 members. I flew to Chicago to talk to Ray Daniels and Randy Mosier. At Pink Boots Society, I was there at the conference recently in North Carolina, and I continue to ask women and men that I encounter, what can I know about homebrewing? How do I help bring homebrewing back to you, or to you in the first place, to your home? How do I get you to join us? How do I have people understand how I feel about the hobby is that reward and sense of growth and learning? Homebrewing and brewing on the professional level teaches us about ourselves and each other. It teaches us chemistry. It teaches us history. It teaches us about hardware and being MacGyvers and learning how to patchwork stuff and make things work. It teaches us so much. So journalism has me as that kind of little curious inquisitor to anyone that comes my way. And to me, everyone has an equal voice. I think everyone's version. There's no way to please all people. But you're going to hopefully see us continue to be right in the middle, in the right place as your national association. And that is what I'm doing. I'm asking questions, I'm cataloging information, and then I'm adapting what I learn to improve what I do in the future. Homebrew that went horribly wrong. Yes. So in my early days, I had a website, honeywine.com. So I did start one of the first mead websites. And I was brewing a lot of mead. And my husband and I, Greg, had a Piment. Piment is part grapes, part honey. And it just sat on the grapes too long. It wasn't even a good choice of grapes. Greg's mom, who lived in Longmont in the flats here, we were up in Netherlands at the time when I had a cabin up there. That was my main home. Total coup to buy real estate on your own, by the way. I did it as a single woman. Anyway, we brewed the Piment there with my to-be mother-in-law's grapes that were Concord grapes. They were too tannic, sat on the skins way too much. Every time Greg and I tasted it while it was in the carboys, or then the day we bottled it, or then as we cracked open bottles, we were just less and less pleased. So we ended up calling it Pissy Ass Piment. We were just pissy every time we tried it. And frankly, it never came to a place where we liked it. We thought it would just evolve and magically become better. It did not. So that is my answer to it. Question with 4 votes. With constant innovation in brewing technology every year, I'm always overwhelmed reading reviews, recommendations. Do you have a recommendation for homebrewing equipment for a novice homebrewer who lives in a high rise? Mara Lee, please go to homebrewersassociation.org. Please click on the making beer resources. We talk you through what you can do. And often you have much of the equipment already in your house. I get it. I brewed in a bar size sink when I lived in a little front room, like a mud room in the old town post office of Eldora, Colorado, one of the windiest places in the country, by the way, up in the mountains again in Colorado near here. And I brewed in a bar size sink. My apartment was so small that my futon bed was next to my toilet. It was a total small studio of like 400 or 500 square feet. And I still brewed in there. I pulled it off. And so it's all about, if your kettle isn't big enough for the batch, you can just dilute that batch and add water to expand it later, as long as you're getting proper extraction from your malts. And frankly, if you brew with extract, you've already got the conversion done. So I would recommend extract partial grain brewing, where you're using what's mostly converted, but you steep a few grains in like a tea bag dumping in to your wort, and that gives it a little more dimension and complexity. And don't be scared if you don't have a big, 8-gallon kettle to put on your stovetop or Cajun cooker. You can brew the batch and then add water before you put the yeast in. Good luck with that, Marley. Thank you for asking your question. So I've got any others?
Probably have time for a few more here. I have one here that says, if I don't have much financial freedom to get homebrewing equipment and ingredients, what is the best way to start?
I would go on the forums. American Homebrewers Association forum is alive and well. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are subscribed, and put forth, I'm looking for this homebrew equipment. Anyone got any to spare? Sometimes you don't even have to buy it from each other. And frankly, one thing I want to start in 2023 is if you've been through natural disaster, as my story in Zymergy shared, I want to connect homebrewers who have extra equipment, have stopped brewing, maybe have extra for whatever reasons, and they want to put it forth. I want to get it to people really in need. So I would say don't be afraid to ask on the forums, and you will find your equipment. I'm very confident. So go forth. I see how involved is the ABA. So Brewers Association might be the acronym you're talking about, which is the national organization that promotes and protects American craft brewers, their beers, and the community of brewing enthusiasts. That's who I work for, that also has American Homebrewers Association. So the question is how involved is the association with lobbying to be able to mail homebrew legally? I will say this topic comes up again and again. I will say that certainly if you are a member of the American Homebrewers Association, or it's, I think, even public content, homebrewersassociation.org has the latest on the USPS Shipping Act. We, on the BA side, have been very engaged in helping craft brewers expand their direct-to-consumer rights in these discussions. Also behind the scenes discussing with private carriers, that's not the U.S. Postal Service. That is a different conversation than on the home level for unlicensed product to be able to ship. That is a very different conversation. But the article on homebrewersassociation.org will take you through our journey of approaching both conversations. I am encouraged about shipping through private carrier, not the Postal Service, because that is illegal. My homebrew samples for analysis is the way I label my beers when I am shipping to a competition. So I will say samples for analysis. That's what I label on the box. And shipping to competitions is a certainly prolific way that many of us learn on the homebrewing side. The National Homebrew Competition, again, coming up in June, has judged over the years in its 44-year career more than 150,000 homebrews. Wow. And these all in some form had to be shipped or brought to our warehousing units that then get collated and separated and staged for competition. So confidently sending out samples for analysis is where I'm at. And then on the federal side, it's going to take, I think, many, many years, but you can learn about how to talk to your legislators about that from what we've been publishing. And we've been literally sharing that with homebrewers in the form of web content and links that we keep sharing in our newsletter. So thanks for asking the question. All right. I think with that, I'll hand it back to my hosts. I don't see any reason not to let you each go on with your morning and your day. To close it out from my end, though, I just want to thank you for the opportunity 2 years in a row to kick off your conference. Wow, 300 of us plus have given our weekend, and I can't wait to continue to listen throughout the weekend and learn, because we're all always learning. And I'm here for you. Feel free to DM me at Hers Muses on Twitter. My new Instagram account, which I will begin to fuel slow and steady on Instagram, is at Immaculate Fermentation. And if ever in Colorado, look me up and we'll talk homebrew. So cheers to you each. Be well. Build that brewing resume. And go forth and enjoy. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Julia. Okay, so we are ready to close out this session, and like I said, we had a delay with our other one, so we will be starting that one at 9:30. Please keep in mind the code of conduct, and we will see you at the next session.